Hello, everyone, and welcome to Four Lads Had a Dream Sunday podcast. If you're thinking, yep, they're here again, yeah, we are, because there's more news to break. Kenny and I were always going to pop on the show today. We said that last couple of days, but there's just so much news going on at the moment that we'll probably be with you the next few days just while things unravel, potentially a head coach arriving as well. So there's so much to talk about. I'm joined by the lads today, Kenny and Calvin. Calvin, how are you, mate? You well?
All good. Much happier than we've been in the past. Everything's on the way up, so we'll take it.
Yep, there's a lot to discuss, Kenny. More breaking news, mate. I said yesterday, let's not repeat the show, and we were trying to come up with ideas to mix it up a wee bit for the viewers, but plenty to talk about today.
I think I've written that agenda about 6 times this afternoon, mate, and I'm not joking. It's just kept changing, hasn't it? And the way I'm feeling, that's been a struggle, so let's get through this.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just crack right into it then, shall we? Thanks to everybody that's watching, first of all. If you've joined us on YouTube from X or Facebook, or you're watching the replay later on, we really appreciate it. Thanks for all your support. Reports today, let's get straight into this. Reports today that Nils Koppen will leave Rangers tomorrow. That's been broken, I think, earlier on in the day. Chris Jack has covered the story, and also that Dan Purdy is to replace him, the Everton chief of recruitment, with immediate effect. So we've been digging into exactly who Dan Purdy is, and we're going to discuss that, Nils Koppen leaving, etc. as well. And you know the most funny thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you journey back to Old Trafford in January, while we were all watching Dessers and do that magnificent finish and doing so well with a pretty much half team, in the stand that night, as we now know, was our new chairman, our new director of football, our new head of recruitment, our new investors, right under our nose, sitting right next to Patrick Stewart, and not one of us cracked a light. And I just find that kind of amusing now when we look back on it, to say it was there in plain sight, so to speak. Kenny, let's talk about Nils Koppen a wee bit first. Calvin as well. That, in fact, Calvin, I'll start with you, because Kenny and I have discussed Nils Koppen quite a wee bit. He has had a very mixed bag in terms of Hamza Igaman, Jefty, I would say Czerny, really plus points. Negative, Robin Proper hasn't worked. I think that Nadim Bayrami, when you spend that kind of money, hasn't worked. And I also think that Oscar Cortez is a major weight round his neck. And it was a decision I don't think is going to be universally unpopular, but I have a degree of sympathy for him in terms of Hamza Igaman, Jefty, etc. are going to turn out, hopefully, to be very good players for this football club and earn us quite a bit of money, hopefully. Jefty's got a bit to go. Diamandi, you can throw into that as well. But he had a difficult job to do. I said at the time that I was worried we had promoted somebody that wasn't capable too quickly. And he's some of the bigger decisions, as I said, the Czerny, etc. One worked, but the Oscar Cortez one is the one that probably round everyone's neck. How would you evaluate Nils Koppen's time at the football club?
Well, I think it is what you said. It's a very mixed bag. And I think that does transition for him coming from Dutch football. So he probably had no idea what it was like to play at Scotland. So you're looking at defenders. He's probably looking at somebody that can build it for the back. Proper maybe wasn't that exact person, but his passing was decent in spells. But his attacking side of things pretty good. Igaman looks like he's got has a lot of money. Czerny, very successful. Diamandi, he's a top prospect in Europe at the time. It was somebody they had to gamble on. I think it's kind of our system doesn't really suit him as a player. He's not really somebody that can sit in the 2. He's not really a 10. He probably needs to play in a 3, a flat 3 essentially, so he can kind of hang off the left-hand side. Defensively, the signing's not great at all. But I think that is down to Dutch football, not very physical, and that's the type of players he's used to seeing. But that probably sums up maybe where he was in terms of ability, because he should be able to see that. He's a top scout at a top club before he came here. And like you said, he did get promoted really quickly, and it was a bit of square pegs and round holes, because he went from pretty much being a scout to a chief of a scouting team and then straight into being a director of football, essentially.
Yeah, that technical director post maybe just came too quickly for Nils Koppen, Kenny, which is a really difficult one. Are we are we allowed to say that he's done okay and also acknowledge that he's made some pretty big mistakes and things that haven't worked? I think Cortez is going to be the one that hangs around his neck for absolutely everyone, but surely you can balance that off with the arrival and the involvement of Diamande, Egaman, and likes of Czerny as well. Jeffy, I know he's got a lot to learn, but I think there's a footballer in there, and that'll come on to a conversation about Yilmaz in a bit as well. But I think overall, a very mixed bag, as I've said, Kenny.
Yeah, I would agree with you, but I would counter that by saying it's kind of systematic with what's been going on at Rangers and multiple levels. You know, he's been promoted from within, not really qualified for the job, with the habit of doing that. And he's, you know, it's not his fault he's been offered the job and taken it. You know, it's natural for him to want to improve himself. And what I would kind of look at is, in regard to the signings, I've said this, you and I have discussed it, but there's been hits and misses. And what I would look at is the kind of confusion, even in the summer, that we've seen, where we were looking for a number 6 all summer. We went after the guy, Juan Jordan, was that his name? And for weeks and weeks and weeks, it was getting reported that he wasn't interested in leaving Spain, but we still pursued that. The boy Cardoza that ended up down in England somewhere, I can't remember where, was a 6'3", 6'4", 14, 15 stone guy. Couldn't get him. End up with Robin Proper, who's kind of almost the complete opposite type of player. But I would look at certain guys like Diamande, who I like as a player, Egaman, Jefty. There is potential, massive potential in all these players. And he has had hits, as I say, but there's been many, many misses. But when you actually look at the likes of Kevin Thelwell and the new lad, Dan Purdy, that's coming in, we kind of hinted at it last week, didn't we, Stevie, that it was kind of obvious that he was going to either get pushed to the side or squeezed out, because between those two, they are absolutely 100% going to be doing his job. So Kevin Thelwell will absolutely want people that he knows and trusts. And I'm afraid he's just what you would call, in a situation like this, he's just collateral damage to a certain degree. And I feel for him, and I hope he gets, he moves on and pursues and gets a successful career, mate. But it's kind of natural that this was going to happen, I would think.
Yeah, big thanks to Singing the Blues, who became a YouTube member. We really appreciate the support. Thank you for that. I've long since spoke about, on this show, people would have heard me say on Rangers Review that it was rumoured that Kevin Thelwell would bring people with him with regards to who was coming from Everton. Dan Purdy was one. Gareth Prosser, as head of the academy, is strongly linked with a move to Rangers as well and coming in, and I would not be surprised in the slightest if that happens. We've been asked a lot about, I think Bill asked us about Nils Koppen a couple of days ago, and I said, one thing I won't do is I don't think it's fair to kind of speculate or talk on rumours as if I know if it's true or not. So I would just tell you straight up, it's a rumour. And Nils Koppen has done that quite a lot. So in terms of being involved in rumours about him not being at the club for the last few weeks, certainly. So Dan Purdy coming in, we've been doing our research on him. One of the quotes you see from Toffee Web, which is an Everton website, kind of a fan's opinion. Purdy, along with Thelwell, navigated the club through financially torrid period where the primary objective was surviving relegation. He still managed to bring in quality players like Amadou Onana, James Garner and Iliman Ndiaye, while walking a financial tightrope to avoid further complications with PSR regulations. He's kind of credited for doing quite a lot. Calvin, you went into it quite a bit with his financial strategy and squad management. I'm going to let you bring that up because you've found that work on that today. But tell us a bit more about Purdy and Thelwell's guidance and what Everton implemented to ensure financial stability.
So they're obviously looking at a stage where they got the 12-point deduction, which nearly got them relegated when Dyche sprung them back up. In general, they made 80 million profit on players. alone. So they sold 225 while spending 145, which down south is not very much considering it was over a 3-year spell, because you see teams spending that on one player down there. So they've done that well over 3 years. They had to reduce the wage bill, so they managed to get the average wage down from 62,500 down to 57,500. So it might only be $5,000 in terms of that, but over a long period of 30 players, that makes a big difference come the end of the year. And then the agent fees, we know how massive they are because they rip up all the money as it is, but he managed to decrease that down by 44%, which is massive because they can pick up as much as they want really now, especially with all the Bosman deals they go through. A lot of players will just hold off their contract, so they've done well there. And then in terms of their financial situation, so Everton still wasn't in the best position when they were leaving, but they managed to get their loss turned down from 89 million down to 53. So over that spell, we made major differences across it all, and it was all about reduction, but still providing something on the park.
Yeah, and Everton are, as I said, they're credited for a number of good players in there as well. They made that. I'm pretty sure there was a couple of very high value sales as well in there, Calvin.
Yeah, so Richarlison, 60 million, Anthony Gordon, who obviously came through their academy, 45, Onana, 50, Iwobi, 22, Damari Gray, 8 million, he went over to Dubai. And then they had quite a lot of academy graduates came through. So like Ellis Sims, he was at Hearts for a while, ended up at Coventry and Sunderland. So he's been quite a big one for them. But then they managed to bring in some really good players on the cheap as well. So Tarkowski, steady centre-half down south, got him in a free transfer. Dwight McNeil, 15 million for Burnley as well. Obviously, Deichmore, they've known him from that spell. Onana, 30 million the bottom for, and then sold him pretty much a year and a half later for 50. So 20 million profit straight away. And you've seen he's been quite a steady player for Aston Villa, so that's a success. And they managed to pull in James Garner from Man United for 9 million, and I'm pretty sure they'll make a good bit of profit on him.
That all sounds reasonably positive, Kenny. Almost. Just a wee hello afternoon. Jim just checked in, making sure you're all shaved and teeth cleaned. Absolutely. Apart from Calvin, he's a youngster. He has hair to burn. But Jim's also our sponsor over at Rhino Express. Does a huge amount for the podcast and for myself personally. A very good friend of mine. Jim, hope you're well. Kenny, that all sounds really positive from Dan Purdy. It's good to have Calvin here to do the research and look into it a wee bit this afternoon as well. But as I said, that all seems fairly positive.
It does, and we don't do much research, do we, Stevie? Let's be fair. We'll leave that to others. But it's one of these things that you look at, and on the face of it, as Calvin has said, is that you look at it, and the remit was literally to get the wage bill down, to reduce losses, keep them in the Premier League, and under mitigating circumstances as well. And I think this is all to do with getting them in the right situation for when their new stadium opens, isn't it? And so that they can actually go and spend a bit, and they will be in a much better position. So to be fair to both Kevin Thelwell and Dan Purdy, they have absolutely done the job remit to the best of their ability, and they will leave there as a success. How much of a success, I really don't know. I'm not going to pretend that I know huge amounts about Everton, because I don't. But on the face of it, from somebody up here that's watched Everton struggle since Walter Smith's days, if you remember, they just struggle year in, year out. Well, when I was a kid, they were winning the league and stuff like that down there. So I think they're leaving them in a better position than when they took their job. So it's exciting for us in the sense that how can you gauge how they're going to do, Stevie? I don't know, right? Nobody's going to know how they're going to do. But for me personally, I just look at what's happened today, and I see a cohesive pattern, or cohesive structure to what's going on. The guy's job started today in the 1st of June, and instantly there's things happening. And that for me is exciting, because it just looks like we're going through a natural process, and we look as if we're a functioning football club almost instantly, where for the last 18 months or so we haven't really looked like that, have we? And that's my kind of take on it. I'm looking at it now and thinking, well, if this is coming out on first day, what on earth's in store for us over the next week? Because I can just see them almost gutting the place to a certain degree as best they can, and just bringing in their own people. And I'll be really interested now, Stevie, to see in terms of the kind of scouting system that we have and what they're going to do with things like that. Because for me, the recruitment at any football club is the most basic thing that you have to get right. You have to have good people in place that have an eye for a player that will do a job for your football club. And as I say, on the face of it, with these two guys, that's what it looks like they've managed to do at Everton. I know Kevin Thelwell did a fantastic job at Wolves as well. So he's coming with a tremendous CV. So I'm quite excited to see, genuinely excited to see over the next few days what's going to happen, because things are moving at a rapid pace, and I'm quite impressed so far with the way things are moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim Anderson asks, how can I become an extra member? Jim, there is a link right up the top of the comments from Four Lads. You'll see it there. Just follow the instructions. You can become an extra member there. I want to address this. Joe Montana asks, I think it's quite interesting. Do you think the Scuppers have any idea players already agreed pending Thelwell officially starting tomorrow? This is only subjective, and here's my only opinion on this, Joe. I don't think it does, because when we talk about Purdy and Thelwell, etc., all being at Old Trafford way back in January, I think that tells me, boys, that this has been ongoing for a long time. As I said, they used the phrase hiding in plain sight right at the very start of the show. There's no way, for example, they've went and signed Lyle Cameron, or they've went and looked at potentially going for the boy Burgess at Ipswich, or even Mulligan at Dundee again, and this hasn't been ratified by the other members of this new team, Thelwell and Purdy. So my only opinion on that, lads, is that any signings that potentially have been identified of coming in will have been done with the guidance of Thelwell and Purdy. And again, these are speculative names. We don't know how true they are. We don't know. Nothing's official. But I would say, definitely, if that's the case, then these guys have been involved in it already, Calvin.
Yeah, there's no chance they're letting anything happen without it being on their watch, especially when they were so deep in. Because I was at the AGM last year, and Alistair Johnson brought up about being a satellite club and part of it. So this has been on for even before January. So that was November for the AGM. So that's all been kicking off since then. So these guys probably knew what the rules were going to be, because being part of this system with foreigners kind of set up before in the Red Bull system. So I don't see any chance that anything's happened without their say so.
Kenny, would you agree? I do. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, when you consider what you said at the start of the show there, that all these guys were together. And now, when was that Man United game? Was that November, December?
January.
Was it January? Right.
January.
Well, there you go. 5 months. They've been... well, when I say they've been together, not been together, but you know what I mean. That if they're all in situ, we'll rephrase that again. If they're not in situ, but you know what I mean. Where, for me personally, I would look at that and say absolutely that. I would go as far to say that there is plenty of deals ready and good to go, and I'm just speculating, but I do actually think that this looks as if this has been in the planning stages for such a long time, that player recruitment and management recruitment and all that is way down the line, I would presume. And as I say, I'm quite excited about that, because this is the guy's effectively the first day of his contract, and we're getting information already. So on the player thing, I would be very surprised if Calvin's not absolutely spot on. Actually, I think he's right. That loads of deals have been discussed and getting planned already. Whether there's any ready to go, I have no idea. But that's where I would be looking at it.
Yeah, I would agree. Huge thanks to James Stewart, who's became a YouTube member as well. Thank you, James. Craig Gallagher brings up, sounds like their plan has been in operation for a while now. That's exactly what I think. I've long since said that Chris has spoke about it as well. I know how close Chris worked on this takeover chat. Chris always said that it was end of May into June and stuff, and he's got everything he said has been fairly spot on. He's got to give him credit for that. He's always said that they have been de facto working, and owning the club as such, even when they haven't officially been. So I would agree that this has all been ongoing for quite a while. I think it does suggest that Kevin Thelwell will come in and hit the ground running in terms of knowing what he has to do, the changes that he has to make. This football review that's been going on at the club as well, they'll be heavily involved in what's coming out of that. So I would suggest that there's going to be a number of changes. As I talked about, Gareth Prosser coming in as head of academy, again, worked with them both at Everton. I think that ties in nicely to rumours that have been going on about. And it's interesting when you Google Dan Purdy and you look at him, he's been linked with PSV, he's been linked with a move to Wolves as well, just in the last few months. I'm not going to say he's highly sought after, but he's certainly been linked with jobs, that's for sure. And he's made quite a bit of an impression. The overall feeling seems to be on Everton supporters boards and that they don't want to lose him. So that's always, to me, a real positive when the fans of the club that he's leaving are talking about him positively. So that's a good thing for me. I think we move on from this at the moment. There's been lots of other rumours today. It wouldn't be a transfer market coming up, as much as death and taxes as a report in Turkey that Ridvan Yilmaz is going to Besiktas. So I think we've all enjoyed that one this morning, and that's coupled by Robin Proper being linked as well with Besiktas and 20 in Shedi. I think we're all of the opinion, and maybe I'm talking just for myself, that these guys are surplus to requirements and can move on and hopefully bag us a few £1 million in the process. Calvin, would you have any issues with Ridvan Yilmaz or Robin Proper moving on?
No, simple. I do think Yilmaz is definitely a player that's got ability, but just his injury record's a shambles. Like, if you compare him and Yefty's just a bit younger. Yilmaz is probably the better player at this minute in time, but one's available every single week pretty much. Another one's available once every 3 months. That's the big thing, especially when he's a high earner. I'm assuming he's probably on 20 plus grand a week because of the transfer fee that we paid. He was well sought after in Turkey when we picked him up, so you've got to assume it's got to be a decent wage on that as well. Proper, he was a captain at 20, so he's probably going to be on about 20 as well, you think. 20 an awful lot there. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes. It's just not good enough in Scotland, Proper. He's just not got the mentality. He admitted it himself. As soon as he came out with that interview saying, I can't deal with the pressure of having to win every week, you're done. That's the easiest way to look at it. Same happened with the Celtic player that done it. As soon as he said that, Dykes had him in the back pocket every time he went up to Livy. These players just don't understand the mentality, don't understand winning every week. They want to play tippy-tappy football out for the back. You're not getting it. There's somebody right on you every single step of the way.
Kenny, do you have... This is why I went back to Jeffy a wee bit, and I've spoken about this and I've said this before. I'm with Calvin on Ridvan. He's unreliable. I think he's a player, by the way. He's shown in players. He showed against Maeda and stuff that he can track, and he's a really good player in moments. But he also has moments where you think, what are you doing? And Calvin's right. I seen the comment there that he's missed over 50 games for Rangers. That's crazy. We cannot afford to have players in our squad like that. I'm not interested in having them go out on loan. I want to cut my losses with these guys. I would settle for £3 million for Ridvan Yilmaz and thank him for his time here. I know that we signed him for in the region of 3.5-4 million, and a lot of it was add-ons. I'm not sure where we are and what we've hit with that, Kenny, but he just isn't available. And this is what I was talking about with Jeffy. I'm quite happy for Jeffy to be a background left back and learn, come on for minutes, get games. We need a really solid left back coming in that's going to be able to perform and play. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody comes in with a bit of expertise at left back maybe, and then you can have Jeffy as a younger one coming on in games and at times, and maybe even starting in certain games because he can play in certain games. But that's my opinion on it with Jeffy. So Ridvan for me is surplus to requirements.
You steal my thunder, why don't you? That's exactly what I was going to say to you. That if Ridvan goes, I'd like to see a first choice left back, I beg your pardon, coming in, because the potential is there for Yefty, and I'd like to see him play 30 games next season. But I want a first choice left back with a bit more experience that he can learn from, because the defensive side of the game has let him down quite badly at times this season. So if we can get Ridvan, if we can get Ridvan off the books, what I would say is that I've got no real time for the boy in terms of the injuries that he's had. Is there a player in there? Yeah, possibly. I'm not even convinced. I know you two have said you think there's a player in it. I'm not even convinced he's as good as a lot of folk perhaps think he is. I played left back when I was a kid, and I see lots of mistakes in that boy all the time. And I do think that what we need to do is guys like that. There's so many in our squad, from the advanced to the propers. Our squad needs as many of these high earners. You know, we've got other ones there. You get a Ravi Matondo on the same side. Think of the money that this is costing for these two guys just to sit injured week in, week out. It's a nonsense, Stevie. We have to get that real problem rectified. And yeah, as I say, Rid Van Yilmaz and Robin Proper aren't the only ones that I want to see going in the summer. I would listen to offers for just about everybody, I've got to be honest. And that's where I kind of am with Rid Van Yilmaz. And Robin Proper is just a misfit. He's a guy sitting, a bad actor in the wrong movie, mate. That's what the way I would put this. And it's no harm to him. It's not his fault. It's our recruitment policy that has let us down badly. And who wouldn't want to come to a club like Rangers? And I don't, if you're at 20 Escadé, then why wouldn't you want to come and play for a team that's playing European football and playing in front of 50,000 every week? So it's not his fault. But it's up to us.
I would agree. I think that's absolutely spot. I agreed with everything you said there. On Jeffy, right coaching, I think, and progress with him, I think he could become something for us. But I absolutely acknowledge there's mistakes there and positional issues and stuff like that. I'll be honest with you, and it's been commented a lot, and I absolutely agree with everybody. I'm looking for a new back five. It's probably a different podcast to have, but we need a right back. We need a left back. We need 2 centre backs minimum, potentially 3. And I think that goalkeeper wise, still a huge question mark regarding that as well. If we bring one in, Jack Butland probably goes. So there's a lot. I mean, there's so much work to do. Somebody commented that the really only ones you want or really would lose sleep over is Raskin and Eagleman. Potentially. I still think you've got to make a squad. So the likes of Barron, Diamande, Jeffy, John Suter, James Tavernier won't move on. I would move him on, but I don't think he'll leave. He wouldn't be a first team starter for me. Liam Kelly, I think you're going to find that Cyril Dessers, there'll be lots of interest in him, but Danilo or Cyril Dessers, one of them will go. It points to probably Cyril Dessers because there's interest in him, but then you need to go and replace him, and he's done a tremendous goal scoring job. So there's a lot. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of movement in that squad, but there's so many that need to come in. We don't have any wingers. That's a priority. That needs to be a priority. We need pace, we need power, we need physicality. None of that is unfair in the slightest. So there's so much work to be done. 2 full-backs, as we talked about at this moment in time. Yes, absolutely. As we move on, though, there'll be more discussion about signings. Recruitment's got to be key. I think we all agree on that. Recruitment is absolutely key to us doing anything, I think, this year. That's for sure. But as we move on, a bit of other news that we covered and we spoke about a wee bit, but we never properly covered it, and it's come out obviously in papers and things like that. The Rangers are going to be now, instead of being a public company, we're essentially going back to a public company. I've spoke to people about this because I'm not professionally trained on what's what, and I'll tell you what they said. The main differences are twofold: the ability to freely trade shares and the level of transparency over shareholding and the time you have on annual accounts. Basically, what it means is there's small changes. Accounts need to be submitted 9 months after the year now instead of 6. There's no longer a requirement to hold an AGM anymore. It ultimately reduces the administration tasks, which takes up cost and time. No AGMs is interesting. It's a reduction in transparency. I think that's the easiest way to describe it. Being delisted from the PLC, practical impacts are minimal, and that's the feedback I'm getting, and zero concerns about it. I suppose it makes headlines, Kenny, but I'm not sure that it's really a thing. And I don't know enough about it, so I can only go on what people are telling me. But I'm not sure it's really something that's massive that we need to think about. We've obviously got new owners; they want to do it their way, and I think they will. And this is just the first step in it.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And what I could add to that is from a what if perspective is that what happened to us in 2012 and where we were and where we as a fan base all kind of basically united and said that we will never let this happen again. And we will keep our eye on any board or any owners, and we will hold them to task. And I think that's where some people are a little bit worried about becoming a private company, where there is a little bit less transparency. There's no doubt about that. But they're still accountable to the shareholders. That's what I think perhaps people maybe don't understand. It doesn't become a closed shop all of a sudden, and they don't need to, be held responsible. They have to be held responsible. And where I think it will actually probably work for Rangers and will work for the new owners is where they can literally just turn around and say, right, instead of having to go through this process and working through legal nonsense almost to a certain degree, they can turn around and say, this company needs 40 million quid now, and they can go and do it. And that's the difference, where they can do that without going through a rigmarole. And to be honest, looking at it from the best way that I can, now I'm not an expert in public limited company, public companies either, Stevie, I'm not going to pretend I am, but that is the only difference from here and now, because although we are a public company, the fact that we are delisted, and we have been for a decade, means that going to a private company is the differences are absolutely minimal. So I don't really have too much of an issue, but I can understand why people, your ordinary fans, if you like, all of us, are sitting there giving it, well, it's a bit of a change that we perhaps wouldn't have expected. But when you stop and think about it, when it's a company like this, do you put your trust in them? Do you put your faith in them? Do you believe in them? Do you believe that they're going to make us better? And I think when it comes to that EGM, where they're looking for that 20 million quid, to pass over that 20 million instantly, then we do have to have a little bit of trust and faith in what they do, and look at the track record. And I'm sure it'll pass with no problem at all, Steve. I don't know what you two boys think, but don't see it being an issue at all.
I'll just jump in. The biggest thing that comes for that there is it's very American. Like, if you think of American sports, it's all big billionaires that own the companies and the private companies between it. We're just not used to it because we're used to a bit more kind of public transfer. But if you think of just in general, most American sports teams, they're all privately owned. So they're just gone down the American route. So I wouldn't really worry too much about it. As you said, it'll make it easy to make transfer money available. Whereas right now, you need to go through so many processes. If they need to put an instant cash injection in, they'll be able to if it's in a private situation. So I wouldn't panic too much about it. I think the biggest thing is they're here to make money. They're not here to squander it. So I wouldn't worry at all about it.
Afternoon, Lewis Baker. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Really appreciate all the support, all the sign-ups. Fast heading towards 400 YouTube members. I looked this morning, we're almost over 7,300 subscribers. Didn't feel like the other day that I was saying we're just approaching 7,000. To be at 7,300 already is incredible. Thank you for all your support. If you can, like and subscribe everything we do on YouTube. Subbing is free and it really helps us. We would really appreciate it. I would only say this. The reason why I'm not overly concerned about what they're doing is there's a track record there of what they're doing. When you look at Leeds United, when you look at the 49ers enterprises as an overall group, they're not coming in to do the things that have happened to us in the past. So I don't see that as being an urgent worry. Moving on, that in ending this podcast, it would be silly not to mention the manager stuff, because everybody's asking what's the latest. The latest is exactly what you know of. We are still waiting to find out what's going to happen. Everybody now reporting that it's a toss-up between Russell Martin and Davide Ancelotti. We'll just need to wait and see on that. With Thelwell starting tomorrow, do we expect a quick announcement? Yes, I do. That's only my own opinion. I would expect Thelwell to come in. I said this the other day about it being like a ball of string. The takeover happens, Thelwell starts, everything starts to unravel. Already Purdy's here. Nils Koppen is left. Calvin, do you see it going any other way? I don't see this being a long, drawn-out affair. I can see midweek us knowing exactly where we are in terms of a new head coach.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's pretty much down to the final two. And interestingly enough, Thirlwell was at Everton. He had Ancelotti there. Is it Stegerson, who's like in charge of one of the board members for the enterprise? He was at Southampton when Russell Martin got appointed. So there's no surprise that it's people that they know. But the Red Bull side of things seems to have won everything else so far. So I'd be tipping my hat on Ancelotti because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really difficult to think about it not being it's funny because when you speak to the Ancelotti group in the Spanish media, they all think it's Ancelotti 99%. I've seen it quoted as. When you speak to the English media and people talk sport and things like that, they're pushing towards Russell Martin, which shows you I don't think anyone really knows. But I wouldn't bet against Calvin this being done, him coming back from his holidays and joining up. I think that's us putting 2 and 2 together, possibly making 6 or 7. We're going to find out. But I don't see, and I always stand by this, and when you look at the more things that happen, let's look back to Old Trafford again in January. I'm going out on about it again, but there was Purdy, there was Thelwell, there was our new chairman, everybody all there right in front of us. There's no way that they're suddenly rocking up not knowing what they're doing. I think this has been in their head with a plan now for several months. Ancelotti arriving, Calvin kind of fits into everything if that's the way it's going to be.
It makes sense. Everything comes from people they've worked with before. The Everton people coming across, and Thirlwell did want Davide to take over after Carlo was leaving for what you read in the papers and what the news reports was down there. So he obviously thinks very highly of him, like the players that he's worked with. So that's why I think it's Ancelotti. A bit gutted if it's Russell Martin who right off.
Kerry, we've spoken a lot about this. It's dominated so many podcasts. Do you agree that we're now reaching the very end game with this? And do you expect there to be a twist? Are you worried about anyone else coming in, or not worried? That's probably. Are you thinking maybe there'll be a late push for somebody else, or do you think it's strictly between them two? And would you be averse to any of them? I think that's the best way to put it.
Do I expect it to have been done already? Do I think they know exactly who it is? Do I think the man is effectively in place? Going on today's proceedings, it almost, yeah, of course it is, because they've been building this structure for a number of months. So I have no doubt in my mind that they know exactly who it is. Do I expect a twist? Yeah, oddly, yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if it's somebody that's never even been mentioned, because they've managed to keep things really under wraps. Do I think it's Ancelotti? Yes, I probably do. Do I want Russell Martin? No, I don't. And it's not because it's a personal thing. It is because he is one of those, and we've discussed this on this pod for a while, philosophy managers that just rub me up the wrong way, mate. It just reminds me too much, and I'm not. I suppose I'm comparing apples and oranges here, right? But it reminds me of Mark Warburton too much. It really does. The kind of style of play and stuff like that. And yeah, it's different times now, and Mark Warburton did a decent job for us up to a point, but it was very predictable football. And you discussed this the other night as well, Stevie, where it becomes that horseshoe when you've got that. It is attacking style of football. Don't get me wrong. I do. The Southampton team in the Championship was a decent side to watch. I get all that, but not for me. It's just not what I think we need up here, and that's where I'm kind of at with it.
But that Southampton team in this Championship as well finished fourth. They got scudded by every big team around them. They got hammered 5-0 by Sunderland. Their defensive record was something like 14th best in the league. And it's really difficult for me not to be worried about that. And that's the biggest concern. This isn't an anti-Russell Martin position from me. I'm just really concerned. And I think he's done a good job in terms of things. But I think he's so chained to what he wants to do that my worry is I've seen that style of football here. And here's where it's completely ridiculous. And I know that it's ridiculous because we don't know anything about Ancelotti. We don't know his style. We don't know his formations. We don't know what type of football he'll play. We don't know anything like that. But we do know what Russell Martin will do. And the bottom line is, if it's Russell Martin, I will get behind him 100% and we will give him a fair crack of the whip. But it's okay to say that we have concerns. Much like if Ancelotti comes in, I'll have massive concerns about everything I've just mentioned as well. He doesn't have the experience. He doesn't have... we don't know what we're getting. It's a massive unknown. But there's an excitement behind Ancelotti, for me personally, that there isn't with Russell Martin. And that's only me. So that's only my kind of personal feeling on it. But Ancelotti comes from Madrid. He's got that panache of working with his dad for so many years. He's done so many big things. People that talk about him speak about him really well. If you type in Russell Martin into a Southampton fans forum, the stuff they say about him is truly alarming. Needing goal. I read it last night and they were talking about him needing goals in the last minute and we're still playing it along our back four. That kind of stuff I've seen for so long that worries me. So when I talk about kind of Ancelotti, it's preference of who's there and who's available as well. And I think that's fair. So we're going to find out very soon, Calvin. You've already said it's Ancelotti for you. You haven't been on since the takeover and things like that. I'm wondering just if we can get a kind of synopsis of you, of how you feel on the last few days and what you're really hoping for in the coming days now for Rangers, just before we finish the pod up.
It's total relief that it's finally done. It was just dragging in, but we knew it was going to get there. We just needed it to get over the line. Buzzing about it in general, it's going to make a big difference long-term financially at the club. These guys know how to make money. They know where to find sponsors, how to market the place, how merchandise works, how they can make external events make money. Like, they built Edmiston House without a plan. Right? They wanted to make it a venue for gigs and everything else with nobody there that had any experience in that department. These guys do. So they can literally do whatever they want. They could put concerts in Ibrox. They're going to be able to do things in Edmiston House. They'll be able to make changes to the stadium. We've seen the farce last year where they put in the disabled section. It was a total riot. These guys are 100% straight through the line. They'll know what they're doing. So I don't think it can get much better at this stage, as long as it's not Russell Martin.
Kenny Calvin's not hiding his colours there, but if you were to talk about the last couple of days and go into what you want to see coming up for this week, where are you with the club and what you're expecting and what you're hoping for in these coming days?
I want a professional and well-run football club, Stevie. It's something that we've not had for a long, long time. And going on the basis of everything that's happened over this weekend, I expect them to do just that. And all you have to do is look at the track record, and it's very, very impressive. And what I would like to see over the next few days is exactly what's kind of happened over the last couple of days, mate. And it's just a process that seems to be going from A to B to C in a natural order. And it's, as I say, the word that keep coming back to is professional. They seem to know exactly what they're doing, what they want to do, where they have a plan and a strategy, and they're going to work to it. And I have no doubt in my mind, as I say, that the likes of the manager thing is already done, and I expect that to be announced perhaps Tuesday or Wednesday even. And that's a guess before I'm saying it's a genuine guess. but it wouldn't surprise me if it's early, middle of the week. And that's all I'm looking for at this minute in time, mate, is to see, as I've said to you a couple of times on here, it's to see or hear some of their plans, see what they, even short to middle term. I know long-term plans, you're not going to get them right away, but short to middle term, what their intentions are. And I have nothing but a good feeling about it. And I'm just hoping that when this kicks off, that we see again that professionalism just course right through the football club from top to bottom, because we've been sadly missing it for a long time.
Folks, we have gifted some memberships. They are available to grab. This wasn't me. I doubt it was Kenny. I doubt it was Calvin. So it must be Andrew. Andrew must be on working the editor stuff from the background, because I don't know how to do that. But certainly welcome. Just a thanks from us here at the show for all your support. We are going to end the podcast there. We've been on for 45 minutes. I think that's a long enough to get your attention for folks, and we really appreciate it, because there has been extra shows. We were on twice on Friday. We were on yesterday. 10,000 people have watched that from yesterday, which is incredible, as well as 5,000 live. Another 4.5, nearly 4,700 watching you now. The support for the podcast is absolutely unbelievable, and we love that. Andrew has confirmed that indeed it was him that given out the memberships in the background. So thank you very much for that, Andrew. But as I said, look, I think the support overall for us, Kenny, really appreciate it. And it's been outstanding, and we'll be back. And I think we'll just keep going with the kind of daily update pods, especially when it's busy. Over the next couple of days, we'll be on Monday, most likely Tuesday. We're back for our show Wednesday anyway. And I think while it's so busy, we'll just keep doing that. And hopefully people like it. I know Jeeb contacted us the other day, good friend of the show, saying that he's out driving and that's his job, and he loves it because he just switches it on and he gets all the updates because he can't check his phone and stuff. So really appreciate that and that kind of feedback, and we hope that everybody's enjoying it, even if I don't want it to become overkill. I think that's my biggest thing. So hopefully people don't mind it and they're enjoying the extra shows.
You can never get too much bald, Stevie. You can't. Bald. No, listen, the support we're getting is just stop it, Calvin. The support we're getting is mind-blowing, and we're so grateful. And I keep using this word again. It's just very humbling to see. And as I say, we've got a cracking team behind us. The boys and girls at Four Lads, but it's the best team I've ever had. And I'm just, as I say, we're all a wee bit overwhelmed, and we'll get a rest at some point, Stevie, and we just crack on as it is at the minute, though, because it's great, isn't it? I mean, we're enjoying it, and that's more important than anything else. We're enjoying doing it and just providing the content that we feel that you all want to see.
Yeah, do you know what? It's nice to be positive as well. Good friend Gary over in America. These pods keep me in the loop, so I love them. Gary, we really appreciate your support. Gary and I, people will be bored of me saying this, grew up at school together, used to go to Rangers games together, and he's emigrated and has a beautiful family over in America. So this is my way of being able to speak to Gary half the time as well as getting the odd message from him. Gary, sending love to you, my man, as always. But listen, thank you very much for everybody joining us. Thank you to our sponsors, Rhino Express, Cliveview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, all of which have committed to staying with us for the foreseeable future, helping us. We're going to be advertising at Ibrox next year. We're going to be sponsoring players. We're putting money back into the football club as well. We don't do this for our benefit. We love talking about Rangers, but being able to support the club as well is fantastic. So for members, there's lots of things you can get online. We have interviews, I think Derek Ferguson, Bob Malcolm, Stephen Smith. We have documentaries with on Davy Cooper. We have documentaries on Helicopter Sunday, or reviews on Helicopter Sunday season reviews. And I must say the club one was absolutely fantastic. And it's never going to be as polished, as good as that. But do you know what? We love doing our kind of fan version of it. So we hope you enjoy these things. And there also is the Stephen Naismith interview. Had some comments on that, which are interesting, good and bad. My opinion hasn't really changed on Stephen Naismith and what happened, but that is available and we talk about it and we go in depth. There will be more individual podcasts to do. I have spoke to a few ex-players. I'm hoping they get back to me. There's a few that I really want to sit down with from the 90s, from the 2000s as well. So let's see what we can do. The more support we get, the more we can do. So we really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for joining in. We'll be back tomorrow night, usual time for the Monday showcase. And we hope that you enjoy the podcast. Thanks for all your support. Please like and subscribe if you can on YouTube. Have a brilliant Sunday, everyone. Have a good weekend. Let's hope for more positive news over the coming days. It's time that this Rangers Football Club got moving, and I can't help but hear that we are. Have a good day, everybody. Take care.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.